as a videographer, as a photographer, make sure you're setting up your policies. If you're not new to my channel, you've seen my video on contracts, and I wanted to cover policies because they're just as important. Like when you're not setting up your policies for your business, you're basically just kind of letting it run wild with no rules. Like the difference between them, a contract, the difference between them is your policies are like general rules that you always abide by. It's something that every client has to deal with. Things like when you get paid, turnaround time, the deposit rates, if you refund people, if there's any revisions or how many revisions, those are like the basic policies that I abide by for my clients. Now in the contract, on the other hand, it'll have some specifics. Contracts are legally binding, policies aren't. Your policies can be, waived depending on the situation if you want to let somebody slide, but a contract is legally binding, meaning as soon as somebody signs that thing, that's it. Those are the rules that you both agree to. So for me, I just use policies to maintain like consistency with my business and making sure that the rules are set so that when I go out into the world and I'm interacting with people, I already know in my head how I run my business and not letting my clients run my business, because that's what happens when you don't have policies. And if you're still confused, just think of your policies that your policies are what you adhere to inside your contract. Most of the time, everything that I already have as a policy are in my contracts when I'm like signing for a wedding or if I'm booking like a really big project. And for like smaller projects, I don't have certain clients signing contracts. Sometimes I just lay out my policies and we just move forward. I probably shouldn't do that all the time, but if I'm honest, I do sometimes see a project that's very small and, it's like, all right, we just got to go and knock this out. It doesn't really require a whole lot of stuff. I just kind of tell them how I operate and how we're going to move forward, what the amount is and everything. And they say, okay, and we just move on. But I'm telling you, for bigger stuff, contracts and policies is just the way to go. I wanted to make this video because I'm sure some of you have no policies when it comes to your business, and that's okay, but we're going to change that with this video. I'm going to give you some of the core ideals that I have in mind, just based on stuff that I dealt with. And I'm like, you know what? I need to have rules for this type of stuff so it never happens again. So this is just some foundational stuff that I've learned to put in my policies. Now, the first one, of course, is like your payment terms, whether that's how you get paid, how much you're getting paid, the deposit amount, if that's like refundable or not. Those are all things that I put on like the very first line. And my deposits are not refundable. It's 30% upfront. And I make sure that it's all written out that this is not refundable. Now, you may be somebody who wants to refund a deposit, but most videographers or photographers I know, the deposit is non-refundable. So if somebody pays you and then they cancel and then they try to get their money back, you can just outline it. My policy is non-refundable. And come to think of it, if you're kind of like a shy, timid, maybe introverted person, having policies to fall back on will kind of give you a little bravery when standing up to a client. Because I've had people who have come to me like, oh yeah, well, this guy does it this way and this guy does it this way. And you'll start to bend your rules a little bit because you want to do things like other people do them just so that you can keep getting business. Because it sounds like that person is going to go with that other guy. But you can always say things like, yeah, well, my policy is XYZ. And it helps you stand firm when you can just rely on my policy is this versus just telling somebody no. Because I understand some people just have a hard time with telling somebody no. The second one is turnaround time. Now, for me, I go 1 to 5 days. I normally knock it out in less time than that, but just having that flexibility, knowing that, okay, I have between this day and this day to get this project done without them just badgering me with, hey, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? That will save you a ton of time. I even had a point where I wasn't telling people that my turnaround time wasn't same day, even though I was doing same day work. So there was a time where I did a video listing for a client. I didn't give it to them same day and they tried to go off on me. I'm telling you, they're like, well, you kind of set the standard for yourself by always turning it around same day. And I'm like, you know what? They're absolutely right. I set a standard that technically wasn't my policy. And because I never voiced it to them, they were expecting it same day all the time. No matter what time of day it was, they were expecting it within hours of shooting the job. So moving forward from that time, it was a huge mistake because we were going back and forth for a while. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna just knock this out. Moving forward, my policy is this. And I haven't dealt with that ever since. The next one is scope of work and additional charges. So Things like how many hours you're filming and any additional hours is X amount of dollars is a good policy to run by, as well as additional charges like somebody may only care if you film it and they don't want you to edit. An additional charge would be the editing portion, and or an additional charge may be an expedited video, meaning they said they didn't need it to be rushed. They may have changed their mind and asked, hey, what's the rate if I have you turn this around by tomorrow or the day after? That's when you have an additional charge of a rush fee or expedited fee, wherever you want to call it. And those are additional charges instead of just giving people everything as one flat rate. You can itemize each thing separately, like filming, equipment, things like lighting, audio, drone, things like that. Amount of shooters in case you need help with something, travel, expedited or rush jobs, editing. These are all things you can itemize, and you can literally make money off of each one. So just saying, I do this job for this much, you can say things like, well, I itemize all of my work and my policy is you get to pick, or however you want to say it. But that's how I do that with my scope of work. I like to make sure that people know what they're paying for in case they want to change something up if their budget isn't right. But you're just clearly outlining and you're being very specific. That's the whole point. The next one is client communication and availability. Now, this was a big one for me because in the beginning, I didn't have a whole lot of work. So every time my phone went off, every time I got an email, every time I got a text, DM, whatever, I was answering it. Like I would be in the middle of dinner or at the movies and I would feel my Apple Watch vibrate and I would just kind of be like this while the movie is going, making sure it wasn't a job. Now, growing from that, obviously it was not a very ideal situation because I want to enjoy my free time. I want to enjoy time with my family, my wife, and not having a lot of work got in the way of that. So when I started to get a little bit under my belt, I started telling people I don't work Sundays. I save that day for church and for family. No calls after 7 p.m. Like if you text me, that's fine, but you might not get a response until the morning. But setting these boundaries helped me feel like I wasn't just stuck under somebody's thumb. Whenever they wanted me, they would get me. Like nobody should have 24 access to you like that, especially in your business. Just nobody. I don't care what you say about that. I refuse to be accessible to someone 24/7. So setting those boundaries is a very important part to put into your policy. Another thing is like travel or location considerations. One of my policies could be I don't do any LA shoots past 5-6 p.m. It has nothing to do with like danger. It has more to do with traffic. I don't want to be in 2 or 3 hours worth of traffic on my way home. So that's a prime time hour for traffic here in California. So I may say no work outside of this location past this amount of time. Just if you want to save yourself time and the headache of sitting in traffic for hours every day, or somebody trying to book you late versus early in the morning just because they felt like it or they wanted to get their hair done or whatever the case may be. The next one is usage or ownership rights. This is huge for people like us. If you're filming something, let people know that you still own the rights to your stuff. If it's your equipment, it's your lens, it's your memory card, it's your editing software, that footage belongs to you. Now, you may want to use it for marketing. You may want to use it in your portfolio. And if you decide to, the client can't come to you like, hey, take that down. Like you set clear expectations in your policy, letting them know this footage belongs to me. Yes, you paid for the service, but it was my equipment that filmed this project. So I still own the rights to it and I'm going to use it for marketing or for branding or whatever else I feel like using it for. And then on the other side, you can define whether the client can use your footage for commercial use and how long they own the rights to your footage, because you can set it up to where they only own the rights to that footage for a year or however you want to do that. But that's a part of having it in your policy or putting it in your contracts. I know I kind of touched on cancellations earlier, but having a specific time frame when somebody can cancel can be a policy thing too. Meaning if you want to be somebody who is very understandable, say somebody booked you out 5 or 6 months down the line for something, and a couple weeks after they booked you, family emergency, something happened, the wedding got called off, whatever the case may be, you may just want to be understanding and say, okay, here's your refund back, because you understand. But a cancellation deadline is within a couple weeks of the project. If you cancel, you lose the refund. That is also something that you can do. if you have a soft heart towards that type of thing, because it does happen. You know, you don't have to penalize somebody because of something that was out of their control. So you can have that type of mindset as well. Now, these things are things that I utilize in my policies so that I can just set them up, and they're basic rules that I like to adhere to. And as your business grows, you're going to want to revise them. You know, you're going to look back on them and see what needs to change based on your business. You always just want to reflect your needs and your professional standards. It's just so important, and just adjust what's necessary based on the client interactions that you're having. And if something comes up that really frustrated you, you'll just know, okay, I'm making this a part of my policy to never do that again. But by creating these policies, you are guaranteeing that your business will run smoothly and that you stay in control. And that's the most important part. So I hope you guys learned something from this video. I'm going to cover these type of topics moving forward, because I know there's a lot of small admin things that people could, you know, benefit from. And I'm going to cover LLC because I realize a lot of people that are following me don't have one. They don't know how to set it up. And I set mine up really easy, and it helped me actually to open a business bank account because of how I set it up. So that's going to be in another video. But again, I always appreciate you guys' support, the likes, the comments, the love. Everything you guys have been doing has been heartfelt, and I really appreciate it. Be sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe, share with a friend if you know they'll find value in it, and I'll see you in the next one.